Hi, it's Colleen Schmidt from Divination Counseling Service. I'm going to actually do something a little bit different today. I'm going to do some of the work that I might have done if I were still doing daily astrology. But what I'm going to look at is several days. So I'm going to start off by looking at today and tomorrow because they're really critical to the work that I've been doing. I'm trying to look at Neptune and all the ways that Neptune is going to influence us, not only in the month of April 2022, but also in the month of May 2022. So before I even begin, I do want to say that I'm not sure if I'm going to be doing this in one part or two. It will depend upon how long my mouth can hold out. I did recently just have mouth surgery, which I seem to have a lot of. But as a result, I have to be careful how much I'm talking. So, with that said, I'm going to pull up the charts. We're going to look at today. We're going to look at then May 18th, and we're also going to look at May 24th. And what I'm trying to do is talk to you about all the lineups that occur with Neptune at that time, those times. And one of the things I do want to talk about is that the moon, I actually chose times when the moon would also be there. So it's going to affect even more how everyone reacts to the lineups because the days I'm looking at are days when the moon is also a factor. So obviously once a month, the moon is going to connect with Neptune. It goes through every sign every month. But I chose to look at it example, today, when Neptune is conjuncting both Jupiter and Venus, as well as the moon. So it really makes it just a little bit more interesting. So I'm going to pull up the chart first for April, and then we're going to talk about what those things mean. So I'm back. And we're looking at, as you can see, the 26th. I just popped up a chart today when I came on. Didn't need to go any further than that. And I wanted to point out, it's interesting because everything's kind of hanging around the midheaven. Very appropriate for my speaking about it. But look at this. Now, at 8 o'clock or 8:41 this morning, now you know the moon moves fast. By this afternoon, it'll be even closer. So because we can go as far as 10 degrees on the moon, I figured I could just throw this chart up. But look at this. Moon, 15. Venus, 23. Neptune, 24. Jupiter, 27. So we have been living with the Jupiter-Neptune conjunction, which has some really interesting stuff to say. Okay? So I'm going to start incorporating my notes. We tend to be more idealistic when Neptune and Jupiter are conjunct, and they were already for several days before we even got to this point. This is a transit that creates natural sympathy for other people, so we tend to be more compassionate. We tend to be much more willing to help each other during these times. It also motivates us to actualize our ideals. Okay, it is not just enough to believe in something. We want to make our beliefs come true, as if, making them a reality. It can make us want things to be true, even when they're not. So that's actually something that we have to be very careful of because we can be so deluded by this Neptunian energy, and because everything's in Pisces, and we all know that both Jupiter and Neptune are much stronger here. Neptune rules, and Jupiter is exalted. Okay, so they both tend to be very spiritual. And what happens is, and we can see this with the signing of the law in Florida, that they're pushing their ideals. Okay, whether we all agree or we don't, that is extremely representation of the Jupiter and the Neptune. Okay, so we're going to expect the alt-right and the religious right to kind of enforce their belief system on us, at least at this time. Doesn't make it right, but it is what's happening. Okay, so, and that's a case of where, people can get carried away with their idealism. I think that that's a perfect example of somebody getting carried away with their idealism. Right now, we're actually better at dealing with abstract ideals and issues and how they relate to our lives. So we're really able to look at the abstract at this time. It's really about also being sure that we're keeping track of our daily life requirements at the same time, because see, we're not very practical. And think about this. A law got signed into the United States, don't say gay, which is kind of ridiculous, but I won't even get into that. But what I do want to point out how well this fits. No one ever thought about what it was going to mean to the taxpayers. It's going to mean a lot to the taxpayers. So again, it's an abstract concept, but it has reactions in reality. And I think that that's something that is happening in all of our lives. I'm just using this as an example. But look at this and look at what's going on in your life and wherever you live. Okay. Okay, so we can gain insight into our own lives. And in doing so, we can make our lives feel more meaningful. Okay? Now, all of this is happening right at or close to this midheaven or in this 10th house, which I actually take it as more of a horary, which is I'm talking about those things. I'm bringing them up. I'm putting them into our world and our reality. Okay? This is a transiting energy that can also give us a sense of foolish confidence. Please be aware of that. That anything we do will work out. That's what we're thinking. Oh, we can do anything we want. It'll work. It'll work. Okay? As a result, we are more likely to take risks and to gamble. But this is not a particularly good time to do those things. It doesn't mean that we're lucky or unlucky. Okay? What it means is that things are not what they appear to be. And very often we're putting our eggs in empty baskets. We just don't realize it because of the Neptune-Jupiter conjunction. And that's been going on. Okay? What it does do is it confuses us. Okay? So this whole Neptune-Jupiter thing is rather confusing, actually. And that's why we can't really see what's going on. Okay, so the other thing that we tend to do is we confuse our wishes for practical reality. We really wish something, but we're not necessarily practical about it. Well, I go back to the law. I'm going to keep using that because it fit this so well that I had to use it. And I know that other states are doing other things that also probably would make this would make this work. Okay. So here we are. This is not a good time to make any long-term investment decisions either, due to the fact that we tend to overlook a lot of things right now, and we tend to look at the world through rose-colored glasses as a result. All of this makes it easier, however, for others to take advantage of us. So if somebody's really out to do dirty, they will. This transiting energy helps us to gain insights into our lives. That's the purpose of it. It's about healing spiritually. Neptune, Jupiter, okay, in Pisces. It's a great time to kind of work on yourself. But it is not a time for us to try to advance ourselves on a material level. We are not likely to be successful. And bear in mind that unless your chart says that you're going to get away with being deceptive, you're also not likely to get away with being deceptive right now either. Even self-delusion, which is a big problem right now, is something that we will find out later. In other words, it doesn't continue on and on. It's something that highlights as we go through these transits with Neptune. During this time, and we're looking at it, Venus is also not just Jupiter, which we're kind of going to get away from. By next month, we're going to be looking at Mars sitting here, okay? So right now, Jupiter's getting ready to leave. Venus has decided to plop herself there for a short time. And it will be a short time. It'll only be days. But it's a fascinating time, okay? It stimulates our idealism. We can see beauty in everything. This is a great transiting energy for anybody who is artistic, creative, uses their imagination. This is what the Venus Neptune is. This transit, though, is more about the illusion of beauty rather than the reality of it. Okay, so that's another thing that we have to be aware of, that beauty may or may not be real. Okay, what we're seeing, and we're saying, oh my gosh, that's so beautiful. But is it really? Remember, there's a lot of deception involved with Neptune, even self-deception. We have to create the beauty. That's what they're telling us. That's a lesson here. With Venus here, they're telling us we need to create the beauty. It might not be there yet. And the writer, and I used Robert Hahn in this case, so it's Robert Hahn, Planets in Transit. And actually, I can even show you what it looks like. It's right here. I have a lot of resource books here. There's the book. I don't know if you can see. It's just a black, plain book. Very old. Most astrologers have it in their library. And so those of you who practice astrology out there, even if you're a student of astrology, you probably own the book. Okay. So, thinking of an artist. What does an artist do? They create beauty. That's what we're being asked to do. In many ways, we're creating. Okay? What happens is by only seeing beauty, we tend to overlook the real and possible difficult aspects that are also going on in our lives. So it's this tendency to put rose-colored glasses on, as it is with the Jupiter. See, Jupiter, Venus, I mean, this is like they all play in together. And it's like you're wearing rose-colored glasses and you're not really seeing what's real. Relationships can be particularly difficult. There is a need to keep a clear head right now. With these two, Venus and Neptune, there is a real tendency to fall madly in love. This is like the perfection of love. This is like love on steroids, Venus and Neptune. But the problem is that we're never looking at the partner realistically. And we have to be concerned, because if we do meet someone new at this time, we're going to fall madly head over heels in love. But when the transit has passed, and it will pass, then you have to look at the person for who they really are. Sometimes we're lucky and we made a good choice anyway. But more often than not, that person is not, no matter how great they might be, all the flaws will become much more obvious once this transit has passed, and the relationship will not seem so perfect. Yet the truth could be, you're looking for this perfect love, and the truth is ultimately going to be something very, very different. So, and that's something that it's in aspects of the whole world is going through it. That's also something that we need to be mindful of in our own astrologies. I've experienced this. I can tell you it was a great love in my life, but once it was over, it was over. Okay? So that's true for a lot of people. Okay, so if you're lucky, though, it could be a good relationship. So I don't want to say that they're always bad. They're not always. I think it depends on the individual. You just have to be realistic, and there's the problem right there. It's very difficult to be realistic with all of these things hanging out with Neptune. Okay? It's awful because in a way, this person looks like the perfect person, but then they're human beings, and all human beings have flaws. And I have a saying about relationships, and probably because I went through one of these. when I was much younger. And I think to myself, all relationships are made up of people, and people have flaws. And it's never about people being perfect. It's about whether the flaws of one individual butt up against the flaws of another individual, because we're not here on earth because we're perfect. That can't happen. We wouldn't be here. We're here to learn. So just to throw that out there. Okay, there's also a tendency, particularly in relationships, to be extremely selfless. Okay, and this is particularly true if you find that you're in love. It can be so strong that the illusion it makes can cause us to feel that it's our job to make the other person happy. No, it isn't. But that isn't a self-deluded concept when people are in relationships. Sometimes we even choose losers in order to save him or her. Okay. And we could even get involved with somebody who is either ill or has substance abuse issues. So be very mindful, because those things can happen because of the connections of Venus, Jupiter, and Neptune. Okay. In other cases, it can be us. We might feel unworthy, or that on some other level we need to be saved. Regardless of the situations, it tends to make people too idealistic about the person they're with, rather than looking at that person as if they were an equal. No one is here to save someone else. We're all here to be partners in this process that we call life. So going back to the Jupiter Neptune. So I'm going to be jumping around. Okay, so I'm going back. All right. And it says, we have this greater sense of compassion, which we already talked about, and a willingness to help those, which we already talked about. But we can also be very interested in spirituality, religion, mystical philosophies, mysticism. And it's a really great time to look inward. It's a great time to develop a meditation practice. And why, you might ask? Because not only Neptune and Jupiter, because the expansion of the spirituality, but it's in the sign of Pisces. Okay, so you're looking inward. Develop a meditational practice. This is a time when we can discover that what drives our ego and our needs for self-gratification and self-assertion could actually be holding us back, because we got this better view going on, right? Be very wary that you are not spending your time in a dream world, all right? Because that's one of the biggest issues we're going to have with this kind of lineup. Okay, I'm keeping my cursor there. Okay, so when you're in this kind of lineup, that's what you want to do. That's the tendency. And then we tend to feel like all is well with the world and that we can do anything. So it goes right back to the original, what I talked about initially. So it goes right back. So be careful of things like gambling, because remember, you're not lucky or unlucky, but you're not dealing in reality. It's probably best not to. Not a time for investment. So it's going to back to the other stuff, which is investing is just another form of gambling. One of the things I loved about this one, though, was that we are to avoid purely selfish concerns right now. That the best way to experience the negative side of this transit is to be selfish, to push for your own agenda. Okay? I'm not going to say anything about that Florida law, but it does make me wonder what's going to happen with that. Even when it went through, I thought, It's just interesting, though, because of the time that it fell in. Okay, so the moon is involved with all of these. And you can see the moon's coming in, and we're going to feel this today and tomorrow. So not a long period of time. But it's going to help smooth over any issues that people have in their lives or in their relationships. And that goes for all of us. Because when Venus is involved in anything, it promotes friendships, socialness, everybody being social, a strong desire to be happy and peaceful, but to also make other people happy. This is a great time to be with friends and attend social gatherings. I actually did that this week, and it was really funny. I was doing this work yesterday, and the day before that, I had actually spent a really wonderful day at an event with a group of people, and it was like unbelievable how much fun we all had, how we were all impressed by this function. And every single one of us, despite the fact that I had a mouth issue going on, my daughter had a health issue also going on, in spite of that, I had a great time, and so did she, and so did everyone else who was with us. It was incredible. So I encourage anyone to get out and do something fun, because I think it's going to be more fun than you realize. Thanks to Jupiter. Okay. The other thing that happens is that it can be a time when you could be a center of attention, and a lot of people like to bask in the limelight. And this is the moment you can do this. It's like your 15 minutes of fame, as they said. Now, that again is going to depend on the chart. When I read this, I started laughing. Not for someone like me. I'm a 12th house sun. No. So it's really going to depend on the chart whether you would be even somebody who would want to be center of attention. I, on the other hand, even the day that I was out with my friends, what was impressing me most was the happiness, not just of me, but of every single person who was with us. Okay, this is a great time for a new love interest. It's actually a really great time to start new things too, believe it or not. Not things like, again, not for material gain, not for selfish means, but for, if something happens to be starting during this time, it's going to work out better than you expected. I guarantee it. It says that this is a time for a new love interest to enter your life. And it's great. Now, here again, if you're not self-deluded about the love, but, with Venus here, I don't know. I mean, this is just Venus and Jupiter. You got Neptune. Be discreet. That's all I'm going to say. The other factor about this is that we could really be tempted to buy something very expensive. One of the things I will say about the group of people I spent time with on Sunday, we all spent a tremendous amount of money. I don't think anyone regrets it yet, but I definitely think that was happening for sure. Okay. There's a real tendency to waste and squander money during this transit, but it can also bring windfalls, and it can also increase income for people as well. So it really, it can go either way. But here again, you can't do it if you're doing it for material. If you're selfish about it, it's more like windfalls can occur during this time. It's not, here we go with that Neptune energy, okay? Be careful of being self-indulgent in all things. There's a great desire to be around beauty, and it's hard to be around anything that's ugly or causes issue, okay? And that is very, very true, okay? We could also, now ironically, that goes to another thing. I'm going to not jump ahead because we don't want to do that. Now, just staying with Venus and Neptune again, there's a real spirituality, and I can't say enough about this, okay? With a total lack of selfishness, there's a feeling of being able to complete the soul, okay? But also to complete soul unions with loved ones. This is really wild, okay? At its worst, you would be disappointed in loved ones who did not live up to your expectations. But here you have to ask yourselves, were your expectations unrealistic? Because they may have been. Daydreaming. This isn't bad as long as you keep one foot in the real world. It may even be pleasant. And I actually know people that spend time doing things like that on Sunday. It was kind of interesting to kind of hear how people even use their Sunday, which would have been when Venus was just coming in, and Jupiter would have been more in effect. Okay. It also talks about how the strong love of beauty again, but not being practical. And it's really important to postpone anything where we need good judgment. And this includes relationships and finances because we are talking Venus. So if you need good judgment here, still not good judgment next couple days, not next couple days, not for days, a couple days prior to this. However, good transit again for creativity. We can translate anything into physical beauty. Okay. However, this is not always good for relationships where we can confuse the ideal with the real. It creates a selfless kind of love, making us want to do everything for the benefit of those we love. Now, it's okay if you're already in a relationship and you just are feeling so good about the person that you're with that you want to do something kind for them. But if you're getting involved in a new relationship, you have to be very careful. You're also going to probably be very optimistic during this time because Venus is working also with Jupiter and it's continuing to move in that direction over the next couple of days. So that great mood that everybody's in, that optimism that everybody's going to be feeling, that's going to be good for all relationships because of the optimism. We're so eager, we're outgoing, and we tend to be very open and aware and friendly with everyone we meet right now, because we also have no desire to get involved in disputes, arguments, or anything like that. Just isn't. It won't hold water. Nobody has the zip to get through that. That's just too much energy right now. Nobody. You tend to be a little lazy with all these planets lining up. We do want to think ideal. We do want to think beauty, and we do want to think art. Okay. So as I said before, it can bring some financial luck, but it is luck. Okay. So it just comes into you. It's not like you schemed for this. Okay. But you have to be really careful of self-indulgence, spending too much money, drinking too much, eating too much, because we do not have any self-discipline. I understood that from Sunday. Any celebrations held at this time, however, would be extremely successful. And it's mostly due to the fact that people are all in good moods. And they really are going to be in good moods. This is a great time for a wedding or for any relationship. It is also a great time to fall in love, except for not with the Neptune. So, here we go with Venus and Jupiter normally, yes. But with Neptune, we have to take a lot more precautions than we normally would. And I think we have to bear that in mind. So I'm back. I am going to actually leave it there. And my reason being is I need to take a break for my mouth. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this out in 2 parts. And I'm going to do the May part. We did all of the April today. And this will take us pretty much till the end of April. The next thing that we're going to be looking at is we're going to be looking at May 18th and May 24th for the lineup of the Moon, Mars, and Neptune. And on the 24th, the Moon actually makes a midpoint between, in other words, they're that conjunct between the Mars and the Neptune. So we'll talk about that in the next video. I did pretty good, so I want to quit while I'm ahead. And until we meet again. Oh, and once again, thank you for watching the video. And if you would, please like, comment, subscribe if you're not already a subscriber. Can't believe I forgot to say all this. But please, thank you for watching these videos and helping me to build this channel. I'd also like to take the time to give you a reminder that I do private work and that I am open to private tarot readings as well as private astrology. With that said, until we meet again, I wish you only happy